My mental health story unfortunately begins before I can even remember. When I was just a little baby, my dad began physically and emotionally abusing me, and because of that, I had really bad behavioral problems. As I got a little older and I started attending school, my classmates kind of saw that I had really bad anger issues, and they did things on purpose in order to get a rise out of me and to get the reaction that they wanted. Unfortunately, I gave it to them every single time they wanted it. And that was really hard and miserable for me because, as you all know, being angry is not fun and is really exhausting. But not only that, but I had to go home every day after being wound up and angry at school to my dad, who was angry at me, and it was just all around really confusing and hard to go through, and I found it really difficult that I didn't have a safe space to be in or anywhere to feel comfort or peace, and I really think that that was detrimental to my mental health. There was one point while I was in second grade, that I ended up reaching out to one of my counselors about what was happening at home. I had had a really bad morning before school with my dad that day, and I came to school and I was really emotional, and I was just ready to tell somebody and hopefully get help, because even though I didn't know necessarily that what was going on at home was not okay, I still felt like it wasn't okay. I felt like something wasn't right and I really needed somebody to protect me. So I reached out to my counselor and I said that my dad's abusing me and I need help. And she said, okay, just a minute. And she contacted my dad and called him into the office, and she sent me out into the waiting room of her office and chatted with him for about 5 minutes. When she was done, she asked me to come back in the room and sat me down. She was sitting across from me and my dad was sitting next to me, and they were both looking at me, and she says, "Now Shae, you tell me the truth and be 100% honest. Is your dad abusing you?" And at that point, I don't know who's on my side. I don't know who is safe. I don't know what will happen if I say yes. I don't know anything except that the answer to that question is yes, I am. But that's not what I said. I said, no, I'm lying. He's not abusing me. They both looked kind of relieved after I said that, and the counselor ended up sending me right home with him after the meeting was over. And I was full on expecting my dad to be extremely mad at me. I was expecting him to even hurt me. I was basically expecting war whenever I came home, but I got the complete opposite. I got excitement and happiness, and he was in such a good mood and he just loved me so much. And I was really confused because I just told somebody what's going on and he wasn't even upset. And his reasoning for that at the time was that he was just really happy that I was safe. But I figured out a couple years down the line, after I started processing all of this, that he wasn't happy that I was safe. He was happy that not only am I wrapped around his finger, but so is the school. Because my dad learned that he had more control over other people than he thought he did, the abuse got 10 times worse. And whenever I started 4th grade, he began sexually abusing me. And after he started sexually abusing me, I started cutting. I had found that cutting put my emotional turmoil on pause, and I had found that the only way that I could feel better, even if it was just for a few seconds, was to make myself feel so much pain that the only thing I could focus on was the pain on my arm rather than what was going on in my head. And eventually that led to me gaining an ongoing problem with cutting and even turned into an addiction. When I was around 13 years old, my dad ended up taking his life. And after he took his life, I was experiencing really confusing emotions because on one hand, I was just absolutely devastated that this had happened to me. He was just my best friend, my whole life surrounded him. Everything I did surrounded him. What am I even without him? But on the other hand, I was extremely excited and happy, and I felt like a brand new person because all of these scary things had suddenly stopped. And now I'm ready for my new life. I'm ready to get better. I'm ready to become a new person and be everything I want to be. And I was just so excited, and I never saw what would happen next coming. Around 6 months after my dad's death, my mom started seeing somebody else new, and I wasn't sure about him. I obviously had PTSD from my dad, and I was going through things, so I was just unsure about him. And it wasn't until he moved in that we learned that he was abusive as well. My mom was still going through things from my dad and trauma from him, and I think she was kind of blindsided as well. She didn't know that any of that would happen. She didn't know that he was going to be abusive until it was too late, and she couldn't get out of it. Because of all of this happening, my behavioral problems spun completely out of control. I started cutting even more. I was cutting in public places. I was cutting in school. Anywhere and anytime I could, I was cutting. On top of that, I was sneaking out with people I didn't know. I was doing drugs. I was drinking. I was skipping school. I was doing anything and everything I could to release what was going on inside me. All of this eventually led to me attempting suicide. And after I attempted suicide, I was admitted into a mental hospital where I stayed for a few weeks at a time. For short-term hospital stays, they're usually around a couple of days, maybe to a week. I was on average spending around 2 weeks in the acute unit because I had so much to unpack and so much going on inside my head that there was just absolutely no way that any of it could even be touched within that short of amount of time. So I was admitted pretty frequently, and I think it was around the 7th or 8th time I was admitted that I was finally admitted into the residential unit of the hospital. And when I got admitted into the residential unit, things got so much better. I started receiving exactly the kind of care I needed, the amount of care. At the time, I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. I thought my life was over, but I never expected how much I would actually get out of that whole experience. I just learned so much. And there was a specific unit at the hospital that was catered to children who are showing traits for borderline personality disorder. So you can't really be diagnosed with borderline before you're 18, but healthcare professionals can treat you for it before you're 18 in hopes of trying to slow down the process or stop it altogether. So it was really nice to be on a unit that completely understood my thought process and how my brain works, and it was nice to learn specific coping skills for my trauma and for all the things I was going through. I'm really, really grateful that I got to do that. I wasn't grateful at the time, but I'm definitely grateful now. In between my hospital stay, my mom and stepdad decided to move to a new town, so when I was released from the hospital, I had to start over at a brand new town with new people, new friends, new everything. It was just, everything was different, and I found it extremely difficult to adapt to life outside of the residential hospital in a situation and environment that I was just completely unfamiliar with. I did absolutely horrible in high school. I never studied. I never did my homework. I was asleep in class. I was skipping class. I pretty much looked at school like it was my downtime and my time to relax. At home, I was riled up. I was anxious. I was on guard. But at school, things were a little bit calmer, so I was able to let my guard down and take a nap, or let my guard down and do something enjoyable. All of that led to me not having a whole lot of motivation with my schoolwork and not having any drive. And it wasn't until senior year whenever I realized that in order to get out of my house and get away from my situation, I had to graduate. There was just absolutely no choice. It was something that I needed to do to pretty much survive. And that's exactly what I did. I am so happy and so proud of myself that I was able to do that. At that point, I didn't even think that I would be alive. And now I'm graduated. And I just think that that's just super amazing that I was able to turn the tables like that. Now I have my own apartment and I have a job that I absolutely love and that I'm passionate about. I've inserted myself really heavily into the mental health community, and I get to do various things through that I absolutely love. And on top of that, I have been clean from cutting for over 2 years now. So super happy about that. Super proud of myself. I never thought that I would get here, and here I am. I once again proved myself wrong. There have been multiple times throughout my childhood and even throughout my adulthood, and even probably 20 minutes before filming this video, where I thought, there is no way I'm going to make it past this. There is no way that anything good is going to come out of this. There's no way that this is going to work out. There's just no hope in sight. And every single time I start thinking that, I prove myself wrong once again. And sometimes I think I forget and underestimate how much power and strength I really, really have. And when I put that to use, I can get some crazy awesome things done. And that's exactly what I'm doing and what I've done today and what I will continue to do. I hope that with me sharing my story, that maybe some of you might feel inclined to share your story as well. I think that it is so important to have an open conversation about mental health and about trauma and about the things that are just really hard to talk about. I think that if we keep talking about it and we show that we're not afraid to bring it up and to work through it, that other people will follow and other people will start sharing their stories, and it'll just create this awesome ripple effect. And imagine the things that can be done. It's amazing. So thank you guys so much for watching my video. Thank you for sticking through it with me. And I really hope you guys have a great rest of your day and stay safe. Bye-bye.